On this special episode, I head to the Four Corners region of the American Southwest. I'm traveling in response to an invitation I received, because this isn't your everyday desert drifter adventure. Today, I'm accompanied by a legendary Southwestern archaeologist and an elite team from the Archaeological Conservancy. Our mission today is to investigate a canyon, more specifically, an ancient city hidden within. The city is an archaeological treasure, representing over 600 years of human history. The story of these people and the artifacts they left behind seems to pour out of the earth in front of you. The site is as captivating as the landscape it sits upon. I didn't know what to expect when I set out for this trip, but let's just say it's an experience I'll remember for the rest of my life. Camped out in the car last night, so getting everything charged up here last minute. I'm going to be leaving here in just a few minutes to go meet up with the rest of the crew, and then we're going to take a dirt road into the site. So I am trying to get myself alert and awake. Gotta be honest, I'm a little bit nervous. Hopefully I don't make a fool of myself. Let me introduce you to the crew today. First, we've got Ann Lowe, the president and CEO of the Archaeological Conservancy, a truly distinguished nonprofit. Next, there's April Brown, an archaeologist by training who now serves as the Southwest Regional Director for the Conservancy. Next, we've got Winston Hurst, whose accolades are numerous, but I'll just say he probably knows as much about this landscape and its archaeology as anyone alive, although he'd never admit it. Last but not least, you might catch glimpses of Susan Bowden, technically the digital outreach coordinator, but really the behind-the-scenes do-it-all who coordinated this entire thing. All right, we're caravanning in. It looks like we're gonna take a little stop up here. Winston probably took one look at me and thought, this guy needs some education. So we stopped on the rim where he could orient us to the ancient site we were heading towards. As with anything, understanding its bigger context is important.
Oops, that's a mic.
It's not a rabbit on your...
I thought that was on my, oh, it's on my other hat. I have a rabbit tail on my hat.
That's not your lucky charm.
What was I saying that was brilliant? I can't remember.
600 to 1200 years.
Oh, yeah. This is actually a major fault, geologic fault coming across here. Strata sandstone, that's the cliff sandstone down there where it ends. Just past it to the right, you can see a hump out there with kind of rubbly, brushy top. That's a ruin on top there. The whole top of that is a small ruin with a kiva in it. From that point on, there are many, many sites fairly close together. They're mostly small, little single-family residential sites with an occasional pretty good, you could call it a small village cluster. The site density increases until it gets sort of semi-urban by ancient standards.
What's the time period we're looking at?
600s to the late 1200s, mid 1200s. Okay. Peaks in the 1100s and early 1200s.
And was this canyon pretty much continually occupied for those 600 years, or were there centuries or time periods that people moved out for a time?
There were periods when it depopulated it somewhat, but there was probably never a time when nobody was here.
Gotcha. So how was such a significant population surviving in this area? Of course, archaeologists have long known that people were farming, but they couldn't figure out where such a large production of food was coming from. In the last few years, they've finally gotten their answer through a technology known as LiDAR. The simplest of explanations is that LiDAR can see things on the Earth's surface that are hard or impossible for the human eye to detect. Winston told us that LiDAR scans were recently done on the high ground above this canyon. Shockingly, it revealed ancient farm buildings and field networks that they had never known existed. Alright, I'm following Winston into the canyon. The site we just arrived at is very unique, and it's not open to the public. It's on a large piece of private property, now owned by the Archaeological Conservancy. They acquired it in 2021. The Conservancy's mission is to preserve the past for the future, and one way they do this is by purchasing private properties that are at risk of development and destruction. To say I was stoked at the opportunity to explore the site is an understatement. With much to see, we set out. Yeah, let's check out that piece.
Basketry impression on the exterior.
So was that, this basketry impression, just like a design?
They formed it in a basket. They pressed it. It's a very finely coiled basket.
Yeah, yeah.
They used the basket as a mold.
And what period would this date from here?
That's what we call Minkus black on white. That'd be from the 1000s, 1100s.
Wow.
This is a 1100s AD pottery assemblage.
Yeah, it's just everywhere.
So they were throwing their broken pots out here. Okay. So some of these probably were broken, from historic stuff, but most of these were just broken pots they threw out in the trash. It's so dark. The ground is so dark. That's trash. Okay. Oh, there's a big pot handle there.
So this would have been on an Oya, a bigger size pot, hence the need for a pretty good size handle. You said, oh, here's a point. Check that out.
Wow, that's a good one.
That's a point. That's what we call a Bull Creek point.
Ooh.
Huh.
That style of point dates they're not common over this far east. They get more common going west toward and beyond the Colorado River in the 1200s time frame. Very typical of these Bull Creek arrow points to be exactly like this, long, skinny.
Huh.
Have that concave base like that.
Clearly we were distracted by everything on the ground, but eventually we made it over to the remnants of a huge ancient structure.
So you see rubble mounds. Some of these are 2 stories or multi-stories. That one might be 3 there, probably 2. We're standing on a 2-story structure here probably. And these are little courtyards, enclosed courtyards with kivas in them. This is the focus of the latest occupation in the village. They aggregated here into this one big Pueblo-style house.
Watching through a screen, it's hard to grasp this building's size. Honestly, so much of it is covered in brush that it was even hard in person. It wasn't until I got home and reviewed the drone footage that I realized the scale of this thing. You can see how far these rubble mounds extend, and imagine how much work went into its construction. This particular pueblo was occupied in the 1200s, but Winston said he wouldn't be surprised if there were older sites beneath it. This was the last major place of occupation before the people left. Asked why they abandoned this site and the region altogether, here's what he had to say.
Well, the traditional leading theory is that it has to do with environmental hard times, drought, but it's a lot more complicated than that.
Knowing the times this pueblo existed during, I asked Winston about its defensiveness.
They went through periods of defensiveness when they would, find the high defensive points and occupy those. But also there are 2 things to do when you get defensive. One is to get on a highly defensible position. Another is to make the village large. Mm-hmm. So if all the folks scattered around for 5 miles are moving into one big house, that's a defensive action too.
So, and that's what's happening here?
Probably.
Okay. Is there a population estimate for this particular structure here? How many families or how many people would this have harbored?
We haven't tried to work that out. It's very difficult because in any pueblo, parts of it are occupied and parts are not at any given time.
Are there estimates for what the entire canyon
No.
There's never been any guesses made?
Oh, I'm sure there have been guesses made, but I haven't made them, and I haven't heard one that I really believe is based on much substance.
This building alone is huge, and yet it's only a tiny piece of what this property holds.
So what kind of point is that,
What'd you find,
Winston?
Ann?
Well, let's see. Has anybody made up a name for that? People would call it something like a Dolores stemmed or a Dolores corner notched.
I've heard that term. Okay.
It's also been called in a Bajo stemmed. It depends on who's calling it and what their background is. So it goes with this style of pottery right here really well. What we call Mancus gray. This dates to the 900s AD. These are structural coils. They're not indented. They're only on the neck, clapboard, so they're overlapping. A little earlier, they're wider and they're flat, so they're butted against each other like this instead of being clapboarded like this. So this is pretty classic 900s. It goes with that point very nicely.
Okay.
And is this other piece?
I wondered. I thought it was a turtle shell. I swear.
Is that the bottom of a?
That's this is the exterior of a corrugated pot, and it's close to the base.
Okay. So somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, it's very boldly corrugated and then kind of smeared around. So it's they threw that one together in a hurry.
Oh, is this another?
So if this were smeared out a little bit, it would look just like that one over there.
Okay.
Wow, here this one's not in as good a shape, but that's that same style,
you guys are
right?
just finding the points today, aren't you?
Oh my gosh, you guys!
Isn't that the same style that Ann found?
Yes.
That's so cool.
So when they attached this to a shaft, Winston, what would they have used? Was it sinew? Was it like pinion sap? Like how would they have?
This one's notched. It's corner notched, so they're coming up from the corners. If they're notched, they're typically lashed on with sinew and some kind of mastic mixed with it or something. But if they're like those bull creeks where they don't have the notching, oftentimes those were hafted with pitch, a mix of pitch and ash or some black goo.
Wow, this is actually some neat stuff here.
Yeah, that's 1100s, early 1200s.
Before I came, I had been told about a series of carved steps at the corner of the property. Apparently, the Conservancy was aware of some of my previous interactions with such features. So of course, I went to go take a closer look. There they are. You can kind of see the shadows the sun is casting on them. A little pottery right at the base of the wall. Bunch of prickly pears. They've got some fruits on them right now. Winston said he's documented 4 over here. I see there's one there. There's one I'm standing right at the base of. It's gotten really thin up there just from erosion, but you can see it would have accessed some of those. I believe just to the left of that juniper you can kind of make out there where another set would have gone up there. So here's what's so interesting to me. You know, I'm maybe 25 feet off the ground. You could very easily walk this slight ledge, get up there, and then access all these. But the trail clearly goes up there. The question is why? So a lot of this you can just see is kind of gritty, crumbly. You know, had you had steps in it, yeah, it'd be nothing. I'm gonna come down here and still see there's some old steps here I'm going to use. Otherwise, the risk factor I don't think is worth it. So here are these little kind of carved out spots. I say carved out, I mean, I think they're fully natural, but they seem to have had some sort of symbolism. So I'm up here now. I don't know if the drone's still getting me or not, but it looks like there's almost steps along here that would lead to that next one, although I think that trail, I don't know, not too bad. Clearly these little alcoves had some kind of meaning to them, but I mean, you can see it's not really to store anything. I mean, there's not much of an overhang here. On this rock face, there's at least 4 of these carved trails. Tucked into nearby corners, there's even more that access similar small alcoves. What's perplexing is that some of them stop mid-cliff. Here's what Winston said when asked about them.
We have a lot of them like that. They're mysterious. I mean, these people could have got up there. They would have had a trail up right there. They could have free climbed half that, and those guys that grow up on these stinking cliffs, they could just up and down there enough to make their mothers nervous. A lot of those pecked step things they don't really make a A lot of obvious scents. My guess is that's a little ritual trail up to a spot where they probably had some kind of power object in one of those. It's looking out over the village.
Yeah.
You know, it could have been who knows what. Maybe, you know, a little human effigy pot or some sort of a ritual object that they would go feed with cornmeal or something. But it'd be some kind of a little shrine location up there, I'm guessing. Just my guess. Some white guy making up stories again. So what we do. But these little ones like that, I don't think we'll ever know for sure what they were doing there.
All right, guys, so we're walking over to a petroglyph site just across the way. I'm with Ann here. I mean, I'm really just blown away by how much the Conservancy has been able to preserve here and protect. Curious if you can talk a little bit more about what the Archaeological Conservancy does, because your guys' reach is so much more than just the site.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, so the Archaeological Conservancy started in 1980. It is our mission to identify, acquire, and preserve significant archaeological sites all over the country. We have permanently protected close to 600 sites.
Wow.
In 45 states across the country. Really amazing, spanning every age of time, from the earliest habitation, everything up to Civil War, Revolutionary War. We really do span every age of time in the work that we do to preserve these important places.
Yeah, no, I love that, because I feel like the subtle message, or maybe not so subtle, like everybody's past deserves to be protected and told in a respectful way, right?
Absolutely, and recognized. And I think that's a big piece of what we do at the Conservancy is we acquire these places to make sure, of course, that they don't get destroyed and they stand the test of time. But we want to learn something.
Yeah.
And we have so much to learn from the people that came before us.
We're gonna head up and see what they're finding up there. Interesting.
So he believes it's Ute.
So maybe, yeah, much later Ute.
See the figure with his little outstretched hands here.
It's probably 19th century.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe.
So far, we had only scratched the surface of what the property held. Oh, really?
The tip is broken off. This part has been snapped, but that's been shaped.
And they would use that for weaving various things, or?
Yeah, punch hole in leather, use it for basketry when they're doing coiled basketry. Late 1100s and 1200s in Mesa Verde style.
Oh, okay.
Repurposed.
Got a good
That's so
find
cool.
over here.
Oh, the dippers. Yeah, the little dippers.
Oh.
This is a funny little dipper. It was the curved down and the bowl was like this.
Yeah.
So it was a funny little ladle.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Oh,
that's
wow.
a nice one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That is a beautiful piece of a ladle.
I'm surprised at how little black on red we've seen today. We should have seen a lot more over here.
Oh.
Yeah, see this one, that's a beautiful, that's an 800s black on red there,
Wow.
Pueblo 1.
Flying the drone earlier, I had seen a structure eroding out of an arroyo. It was striking. I really wanted to try and see it up close. Perhaps against their better judgment, the others agreed to come along. Winston had, of course, been over there before, but since then, the cattle trail had vanished. Yeah, it's not terrible. Do you guys want a hand up there? Gotta find a route up through that. Let me go up it a short ways and see. It's where a flood is kind of washed through, but it might have cleared us a path.
Marco Polo.
Marco Polo. So right before, right before that little pothole of water. It's not bad at first, but then this part sucks that I'm in right now. Can't sugarcoat that too much. So they're down in the worst part. That's just so thick down there. A desert drifter style adventure. You know it would have to turn into that.
This is a
It is everywhere here.
big depression over here that I added to the map is right up here.
Winston says this is a midden, another trash heap of sorts. Flakes from stone tools and points just everywhere. What is that down here? Maybe another ladle handle. Oh wow, yeah, it's got a... Huh.
And they would try to excavate that without killing themselves.
Gosh.
I bet they never had their insurance agent out here.
Yeah, that is wild. See the pottery, everything just eroding out. Just sloughing off. What we're seeing here is a profound example of the power of water and the forces of erosion. This building was first covered by sediment, and now, as the stream bed has been widened and deepened over centuries, it's essentially cut this building in half, exposing the past. This structure is known as a kiva. For the Pueblo people, the kiva eventually became a fully religious and ceremonial building, still used today. But archaeologists generally note a transition period in the past, when kivas were still used for a variety of activities, some ritual, some domestic. Given the time period this one is from, that's likely the case here. You might notice ash and charred wood in the soil here, like this kiva was burnt. I asked Winston about that.
Sometimes it was an accidental fire, but a lot of times it was a ritual closure. They would torch it.
Huh.
Sometimes they were torching them. When they were fighting each other, they would torch kivas, people in them.
Asevertic corrugated.
It's that rim that gives it away, that strong inversion that
Right there.
hooks out pretty strongly.
Huh. As I saw more and more of this property, I began to notice a trend, a dark side to it all.
I have a feeling this is debris from the looters too, from the looted piles too here, right? Yeah.
Almost everywhere we went, there was evidence of looting, sometimes in the form of old pits, dug with heavy machinery or shovels, by people looking for artifacts to sell or add to their personal collections. Other times, it was in the theft of surface artifacts, potsherds, projectile points, and the like. As much as there still seemed to be, Winston estimated that tens of thousands of potsherds, possibly representing more than 90% of surface artifacts, have been carried away from this site. Just imagine that for a second. Imagine what this place would have looked like. The theft of artifacts in the Southwest is nothing new. People will continue to argue the ethics and legalities of it, probably to no end. As for me, it's hard not to feel a sense of loss at everything I will never get to see or experience on these landscapes. I guess I'm about 100 years too late. This sad reality always reminds me of the importance of leave no trace ethics and the need for nonprofits like the Archaeological Conservancy, who try to prevent these places from disappearing altogether. So a question I had, Winston, there's a ton of foot and toe holds going out of the canyon. I'm sure to make it easy for them to get up on top where they had fields. Were they making those treks daily, or would they have sort of temporary structures up there that they might go up, they'd work them for a couple of days, come back?
Well, we're still trying to sort that. They were certainly growing a lot of food down here in the canyon too. Obviously, they were growing it on a massive scale up top. Now, we know that. We didn't know it 5 years ago. There are a lot of small sites up there. Some of them are year-round residential sites. A lot of them are probably little farm houses.
Okay.
Especially, you get one that's a little two-room structure.
That piece there on the ground has a lot of hatching to it. Is that indicative of a certain time period?
Well, it's a style you commonly see in the 1000s and 1100s, and on a sherd that feels like that, that's a sherd from the late 1000s or early 1100s. You'll see it into the 1200s as well. So this is a pit structure here. See this depression? If you dug this, there'd be a very nice pit house down here. So there's a pit house floor down there, probably 6-8 feet down. Parts of the walls will be preserved, the floor will be preserved, the fire pit still got ashes in it, and all the stuff that was on the floor when they abandoned it will still be there quietly.
There was still a significant site we had yet to visit, so we made our way over.
So we're standing probably at the top of at least the second story. So all this rubble that it's buried in used to be up there. So we're pretty high already. Yeah. You'd probably take this mound and double it, and that would tell you the rooftop where they were able to stand and look around. So they had a pretty good perspective on the whole place.
Once again, grasping the size of this building is hard via video. Although the rubble mounds were not as extensive as the first pueblo we visited, there's a mysterious aspect to this one. This would be considered a Chacoan great house, meaning it was active during, and to some degree connected to, the massive cultural center of Chaco Canyon, in present-day New Mexico. You could think of this building as being an extension of Chaco's influence and power over the region. Knowing ancient Chaco's connections with astronomy, we asked Winston if there was any connection here.
When they built that thing, they wanted it in exactly the place where it is. We know that because they could have built it like 50 feet to the west, and it would have been a perfectly more or less level place to do it. But instead, they built it where it was sloping away, and they had to import a huge amount of dirt and create an artificial platform. The only explanation for that, as far as I can see, is that they wanted it right there, not 50 feet over there where it would have been easy. So there's something about that exact spot, and it has to be something about astronomical risings and settings, and I don't know what else it could be.
All right, guys, today we get the opportunity to do something really special. We're going to make a donation of $2,000 to the Archaeological Conservancy. I say we because I truly mean myself and you. This is coming from ad revenue. There would be no ad revenue if it wasn't for people like you watching the videos. So Ann, I'm going to give this to you guys and really just say a heartfelt thank you from myself, and I'm sure many watching. For anybody watching that's interested in learning more or supporting the Conservancy and getting involved, what's the best steps for them to take?
We make it easy. I encourage you all to check out our website, which is www.thearchcons.org.
I'll put a link to it down below, guys. Today, we saw only a small glimpse of everything the Conservancy has done in over 40 years, with almost 600 sites throughout the country. It's the fruit of many years of hard work and generous support from people like you and me. As always, thank you for watching. The Desert Drifter channel would not exist without you.